This is Gemara Metziah, Daf Kov Ches. We're holding on Kov Zayin Amid Beis on the second very wide line, and we're in the middle of discussing different conditions about what and what cannot be done by a river. And on that vein, on the second line, Machriz Rav Rabami. We begin with Ravami making a statement, making an announcement regarding what is allowed to be done on a riverbank. Says Ravami Malay Kasvei Nagodi, the area the size of the kasvi, the shoulders of a nagode, of a bargeman, someone who works with the boats. Betray Avri Nara is allowed to be kept on both sides of the river. Kaitsu, you can clear of trees, giving enough person to pull up the boats upstream. Therefore, on either side, you're allowed to clear the trees. Continues the Gemara, cuts Shitzer Amasa. He allowed them to cut 16 amois of trees. Asalei b'nei Mashrunya Dafnua. People of Marshunya came and they were quite upset. They hit him because they felt he allowed them to cut down too much. Explains the Gemara, who's sovereign thus Rosheld. Kerishas Arabim, you're allowed to take the amount like Kerishas Arabim, which is 16 amois. Below he says the Gemara Hasan Be'inan Kulei. In Rishas Arabim, you're right. We need 16 amois. Why? To allow people to have cars, traffic to travel, and therefore a full 16 amos are necessary. Over here, by the bank of the river, what is the reason? It's for the person that's pulling the ropes of the boat, the bargeman, and therefore there's no reason for a full 16 amos, and rather, Kemole Kasve Nagdi Sagi, the shoulder width of them suffices. So that's halacha number one of the day. How much area can you clear on each side of the river? The amount for those who are pulling the boats to be able to walk freely. Rabba bar Ravuna Havleahu Abba Aguda Dinara. Rabba Ravuna had a certain forest along the banks of the river Amr Lay Neketsmar. So they said to him, you have to cut down the trees, allowing people to be able to walk there next to the river. Amr Lahu Katsu Aluyevatai. Let the people on top of me, let the people underneath me, let them cut down their trees, and then I'm in the middle, I'll cut down afterwards. And then I'll cut it down afterwards. Says the Gemara, why did Rabbah do this? Look within yourself, and then look to others. Meaning, don't go to fix other people. You do what's right, and then let others do it. So why did the Heilige Rabbah say, first let them do it, and then I'll do it? Explains the Gemara, over there, the forest belonged to Bei Parzak Rafula, who was the governor. V'amar, so said Rabbah, if the governor allows them to cut down their trees, I'll do mine. But if he, the governor, is not going to cut down those on top and bottom, what am I going to gain by cutting down mine in the middle? Why? Because if they're trying to pull their boats on the side of the river, mistagi luhu, they'll walk over there. And if they don't have room to pull because of the governor's trees that are above or below me, mistagi luhu, it will not suffice for them. So says the Gemara, Rabbah understood, not stam. Was he being lazy? Oh, you take care of yourself first and then I'll come along. No, particularly because the fields belong to the governor, he felt that he should allow them to do it first. Concludes the Gemara's story on the top of Kufchasam and Aleph, Rabbi Rav Nachman, Havik Azel Ba'arba. Rabbi Rav Nachman was traveling on a boat. Chazahu Abba, the Kaya Gudin Hara. He saw a certain forest next to the river. Amrlo, the man. So Rabbi Nachman asked, whose forest is that? Amrle, Rabbi Ravuna. Amar said Rabbi Nachman v'yad asarim v'asargonim haisa b'mal azeri shayna. Said Rabbi Bar Rav Nachman, princes and the rulers have been here first. Amar leho kaitzu. He said, cut them down. In kaitzu, they cut it down. So Rabbi Rav Nachman did not want to let them wait till the governor cut down his. Also, Rav Huna Ashchei Dekayitz. So Rabbi Huna comes to his forest and he sees that they cut down all his trees. Amar man kaitze Tokotz Anfei. Said Rabbi Rav Huna, who was the one that let them cut down? Let his branches be cut down. And says the Gemara Amri Kulu Shane to Rabbi Rav Huna. All the years of Rabbi Rav Huna, as long as Rabbi Rav Huna was alive, Rabbi Rav Nachman did not have children due to these words that came out of the mouth of Rabbi Rav Huna, which he said, the one that allowed you to cut down should have his branches, which is alluding to his offsprings being cut down. Continues the Gemara. So that's the discussion, but how much area you're allowed to leave, and it would seem that Rabbi Rav Huna was correct in waiting in as much as he wasn't sure that the governor would comply. Continues the Gemara, we're 10 lines into Kuf Ches Amud Aleph. First word on line is L'Rabba Bar Rav Nachman. Amar Rav Yehuda, Hakol Le'igli Gapa. Says Rav Yehuda, I'm sorry, our page just shook. Says Rav Yehuda, Hakol Le'igli Gapa. Everyone, Le'igli Gaba, for the enclosure, the gate, has to contribute. To put a fence around the city, all the inhabitants of the city are obligated to contribute towards the cost. Even the Yisayim, Aval Rabbanon loy. But says the Gemara, the Rabbanon are not obligated to pay for this fence. Says the Gemara, my time Rabbanon loy srichi nitirusa. Excuse me, my time. Answers the Gemara, Rabbanon loy srichi nitirusa. Why? Why don't the Rabbanon need to be guarded? They don't need a fence. No, Torah watches them. Lekaram depasya. However, towards the digging of a well, then afilu me Rabbanon, even the Rabbanon are obligated to pay for them because they need water. Says the Gemara of Lamar Nelo Donavki Bachluza. This is only if the people do not go out to work in groups to dig the wells themselves, but rather they hire workers. That's when the Rabbanon have to pay. Avalachluza loy. But if they go out and they dig the well themselves, then the Rabbanon are exempt. Why? The Rabbanon lavene meibag v'achluzin inu, because it's not befitting for the Rabbanon to go out and dig, and therefore, if they're hiring someone, the Rabbanon have to pay, but to do themselves, then the Rabbanon are exempt from getting involved. Amar Rav Yehuda lekare dinara tutei Metziah le'eloi. Says Rav Yehuda, when it comes to digging the riverbanks, the ones down digging the river itself, clearing it out from all its garbage. The one that are downstreams have to help the upstream guys. Eloi, but the upstream guys lo mistayla tatai do not have to help the downstream guys. The chalufa b'maya demitra, and the opposite with regard to rainwater, that the higher people have to help the lower ones, while the lower ones have to help the higher ones. Mishum shenema tanamiyachi, says the Gemara, Raya chamish ginois. We have 5 gardens that are supplied from the water of one stream, and it's kalkel hamayan, and the mayan, the stream is rude. Kulam etkanois imal yoina. They all have to help the elyoina, the top guy, to fix it. Nimsis tachtoina mitekenesim kulam umetekenes atzma. V'chein chavish chatzeira shem kalchos mayim lebev. 5 different fields that the water is drained and run off into one essential drainage area. Echad miniskalkal chabev kula mitaknes and mitachtoinas, the exact opposite. Nimseis el yoina mitakenes im kula mitakenes atzman. The obvious point is, because when you're getting rainwater, everyone needs the top guy, whereas when you're draining it off, everyone needs the bottom guy. Amar Shmuel, 10 lines from the white lines. First word line is Kulan teaches Shmuel. Hi man, the Ichslik Baraksa Denara. Says Shmuel, one who takes possession of the land along the bank of the river, Chatzifa Have, is a mechutzif. Why? Because he's harming people. Salukilom is alkinulela maisa. We can't throw him out of the property. But in the Kakasi Parsai, nowadays that the Persians write, the Persians tell those who take such possessions, acquire for yourself in the river until the height of a horse reaches. Now, now says the Gemara, we even can remove them from the fields surrounding the rivers. Why? Because those paying taxes already receive the rights as the Persians allow them to have rights in it until the height of a horse. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. Hi man, a little bit of a related but new topic. 3 lines from the white lines. Hi man, achi. Someone has possession that is between the properties of partners, between the properties of brothers. It's mechutz if 2 people own a field and you buy the guy in the middle. That is chutzpah. But unfortunately, we cannot remove him. Nachman Amar, no. Nami misalkin, we can even take him out of that field. But not because of Din Metzah, which gives the joining properties first dibs. That's not the reason. But says Rav Nachman, you could kick him out. Now, even because the Din Metzah. Now, the Din Metzah is more inclusive. It's not only someone who lives in Mamish next door. We're commanded to do that as what is right and proper in the eyes of Hashem. Asa imlach bei. Says the Gemara, someone is trying to buy a piece of land. He's talking with the owner, Amr Ezel Izvin, and the owner says, and the buyer says, can I also buy the next door field? Amr Ezel Zavin, and the seller says, go buy it. Says the Gemara, does the buyer need to make a kinyan on the neighboring field first or not? Ravina Amar Loisach Lemekani Minei Naradaya Amri Zach Lemekani Minei Ve'elchav Zach Lemekani Minei Ha Shadam Lemekani Minei. But says the Gemara, okay, now that you're telling me that the loch is that the buyer has to actually make a kinyan for the neighboring field, he like on a minei, then what? Ayoker Vizil Bershu say, and the increase of the value is considered in his possession. Of whom? Not him, of the neighbor. Because he didn't make a kinyan. If he made a kinyan, that's one thing. If not, that he bought the neighboring field, which made this field go up, that owner is considered that he gained because his property just went up. So, of course, it's advantageous and better to take a kinyan on the adjoining property first. Zavin b'meya v'shavi matayim. Someone bought land for 100, but it's really worth 200. Chazina, if he normally discounts for everyone, then he could do that. However, if the owner doesn't normally give people discounts, then even the bar metzra, even the neighbor, has to pay the requisite 200 if he wants the field. But let's say the opposite. Let's say a person that's not a neighbor wanted to buy for 200. It's only worth 100. They thought that the neighbor can tell the buyer, I wanted you here to help me, not to earn me. You're paying too much money. No, there's no such thing as overcharging for properties, and there's no question. You look around as the real estate market, as houses, and when our prices go up, that's the kiyum of this rule. On the last line of Gov Chazamid Aleph says the Gemara, if he sold him a piece of field in the middle of his property, Chazina, if the land is better or worse than the actual other property, then it's a good sale. But if it's not, Idis or Ziburius of the rest of the seller's fields, Loi, then what? Then it is not a good sale. He can't block others from buying it. Why? Ksarume Kamarin, the buyer is cheating him out by buying the fields next door and not going to buy this field. Therefore, we don't allow him to do that. Rume Kamarim is considered a form of harama. To explain the harama, the Tab Rashi points out that really what this person wants to do is he wants to buy the other fields. So how does he do that? He buys a field in the middle of this property, and now all the fields around it are neighboring to him. So if he can chop this field in the middle, then everything around it will be considered Dina Devar Metzra. And because we're chayshish that he's just doing this for Rama, we stop him from doing it. Says the Gemara Masni, Matana, excuse me. Let's maybe Dina Devar Metzra. A Matana has no such rights of Dina Devar Metzra that a neighboring person cannot block someone from receiving a gift. Amar Amimar ikasav le'achrayis tenis le'misham divar metzra. If he writes a achrayis, even in the case of a seemingly matana, that says Rashi, but if you write achrayis, that means it's a mecher. Very good that you're pretending to give it to him in the guise of a gift. It's not true. Therefore, there would be a case of Dina Divar Metzra. Macher kol nechasav le'echad. Says the Gemara, 4 lines down, if someone sold all his fields to one person, less ba misham din dvar metzah, there's no such thing as din dvar metzah. L'baylam arishonim, less ba misham din dvar metzah, if you sold to original owner. Zavan me'akum, if you buy from a guy, v'zavan le'akum, less ba misham dina divar metzah. Explains the Gemara. Zavan me'akum, damar le'ariya vrachti lach mi mitzrah. The reason why is because if a neighbor wants the field, he can tell them, I chased away a lion. I bought it from this guy. The whole reason of Din Devar Metzra is to do what's right. The guy is no din that he has to do what's right. We can put the seller into chayrim till the seller accepts all einsim that potentially could come from the sale to the non-Jew. So as we're seeing, not such simple halachas, but very encompassing how much care we have to give to ensure that neighboring properties get first rights to purchase such a field. Says the Gemara, mashkanta, last week if someone gives a field as a mashkan, a collateral, what does mashkanta mean? That he lives in there. My nafkamina, ledina divar metra. Says the Gemara, limchaik berachaik v'legol bekarayif. Says the Gemara, more cases of that there would not be the dina divar metra. So wants to sell something far away to buy a property close by. Biras, so wants to sell something inferior of legal biyafet. In all these cases, that's what Shabdi Devar Metzah. The person is just trying to unload it to get a better field. We don't require him to go to the neighbors first. Like similarly, if someone's selling it for a head tax for food or for burial expenses, also less ba mishamdina Devar Metzah. So I'm sure everyone's realizing that there's many, many exceptions where Dina Dvar Metzra does not apply. Damri Nardai, Lekargulam Dani Lekvura, head tax, food and burial, Mizavdinan, Beloyach Razasa, you're allowed to sell even without announcement. And similarly, you don't have to give first dibs to the neighboring fields. Leisha Liasmi Leshotfi. Similar, says the Gemara, if someone sells a field to a woman, to Yisaimim, or to his own partners, less Misham Dina Divar Metra. Says the Gemara, a little bit of a first cousin segue. Shchini ha'ir shchine sadeh. Says the Gemara, quoting a Braisa, someone has a choice. Can either sell to neighbors of his own town, of neighbors of a field. What does that mean? I own something in a different town, and those neighbors want to get rights to the field I'm selling now. Shchine ear, the ear of the sale, kaidmin. Shachein v'talmid chacham, talmid chacham kadam. So he's seeing that there are times that it even will supersede the Dina Devar Metzra based on the person that you're selling to. So Ibaylo asked the Gemara, Shachein v'karov mai. If you have a choice to sell to a neighbor or a relative, Tashema, Tov Shachein karov me'ach rachaik. So Gemara proves that the Shachein comes first. Hani Zuzi Tavi, the coins are good ones. Vani Zuzi Tikulile, and these are not as good ones. Last bay. Meaning, if the neighbor is only willing to give inferior coins, you're not mechuyev to sell to him, and rather you could sell to someone outside who's giving you better cash. Hani Tzairi v'hani Sharei. If these are tied up and these are loose, again, there's a monetary gain. If there's a gain in the way you'll be able to use the coins, all these circumvent halachos of having to sell to a neighbor first. If the neighbor says, "Oh, let me go get it, come up with the cash," we don't have to wait for him. If he says, "I have the money, let me just go get it," then chazinan. If he's a person of means, tells him that he can just go and bring back the cash. But if he's not such a person and he just says he has it, we don't have to wait for him. Era dechad on the first very wide line at the bottom of Kochav and Beis. If the land belongs to one person, whereas Ubeise, there's a house on the land, Achad, Mari Ara Ma'akev, the owner of the land, can prevent the owner of the house from selling to a third party, and he, of course, gets first dibs, the owner of the land. Amri Bate Mara, no, excuse me. Ari dechad batechad, Mari Ara Ma'akev, Amari Bate. The owner of the land could block the owner of the house. Mari Bati Lamakev Amari Dara. The owner of the house cannot block the owner of the field. Similarly, one person owns the whole field, one person owns the tree in the field. Mari Diari Mati Ma'akiv Mari Dikla, the owner of the field, can prevent the owner of the tree from selling to a third party, but Mari Dikla Mati Ma'akiv Mari Dara to sell to a third party. A third case, Ara Labati Ara Lizara. Someone outside wants to buy the land to build a house, and a neighbor wants to buy the land to plant. Yishav Adiv, says the Gemara. It's always better for building houses, settling the land. There's no din of dina divar metra. If there's rocks or palm trees that separates between the two fields, chazina, we see 3 lines to the bottom. If you could go in even one row, then it's because the neighboring field could gain even that row. And we conclude these 4 properties adjoining a field. If one of them came and purchased, Zvine's purchase is valid, and he can't be thrown out. They all come together, that they divide in a karnazel. What's a karnazel? If you look at the bottom left-hand corner of either your screen or your Gemaras, you see that each one will take a triangle piece in order to ensure they all have equal rights. We'll pick it up from the Mishnah on Daf Kuf Tes, B'siyata Dishmaya.